Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
PD Beats here from Popternative. Speak to Grace Van Patten about Tell Me Lies on Hulu. Welcome back to the show. It's so good to see ya.
Thank you. Good to see you again.
Yeah, this show, watching the first episode, you're like immediately kind of hooked, like what's going to happen, who's going to cross who, like there's obviously tension, blurry characters all around. Let's talk about Lucy. How do you prepare for playing a character like this that is so blurry specifically?
Yeah. For this specifically, it was a lot of talking to Meaghan, the showrunner and the writer, and talking to Jackson, who played Steven, and just kind of really diving into these characters' minds and their dynamic and why it's specific and why it's as messed up as it seems. And so I would say discussion was kind of the number one kind of prep I did.
Yeah, absolutely. Having those conversations, how would you react this way? 100%. One of my favorite things too about this show is you can cut the tension with a knife. Just the dialogue between characters just drives the viewer to this kind of like, the viewer's sweating a lot just because of a conversation between two characters.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean by that and everything. Do you notice that immediately kind of in the script that, wow, this is like heavy dialogue that like, even though it's not like it's like a slow burn, it's like it's going to really get the audience kind of thinking.
Yeah, I noticed that like when I read the script, there was so much beyond the words. Mm-hmm. And when we shot it, it was so much of the reactions after the line and the tension and the space. Mm-hmm. And it really took me until I saw, did the chemistry read with Jackson to understand that is what it needed to be. It needed to be tense and the lines we were saying wasn't necessarily what we were meaning. And, everything was kind of convoluted about it. Yeah.
And it's funny too, because by no means is Tell Me Lies like horror. I feel like it kind of has a little bit of like the thriller component sometimes, but it's a drama and everything. But I find it funny because, some of my favorite horror movies do that thing, Grace, where it's like, people are scary. You know what I mean? And like in this show, people do things that to each other and say things to each other that's like, whoa, you know what I mean by that?
Right, absolutely. It's like the monsters of real life are these people.
100%. Yeah.
When you're in a relationship like that, that becomes your fear, the base of your fear and your like insecurities and how you go about your life. And especially at that age, it's such a formative age that when you're involved with something that young, it really shapes who you are. And yeah.
I feel like when you're working on this project, when you're focusing on the craft, so maybe you didn't think about this much like when you were like making Tell Me Lies, but maybe afterwards. So I'm just curious about this. Are you aware at one point of like the journey the audience member is going to have with Lucy, where like you feel bad for her, then you might not feel bad for her, and then it's just like what is happening right now, and you almost feel betrayed in some way?
Yeah.
Like, are you curious? I'm curious about that. Are you aware of that a little bit from the viewer perspective?
I'm not, because I don't look really, but I am really curious because in the beginning, she really does seem like the victim of this situation.
Yes.
And it really swaps on you. And Lucy becomes just as manipulative and controlling and messed up. And I think that, yes, Steven is part of that, but Lucy is also, so in desperate need of his validation, his approval, that she goes out of her way to do crazy things. And I think we can all relate to being in love and feeling crazy and out of control and maybe losing our sense of selves a little bit.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of like trends in like TV and film these days. Like I feel like genre bending's a big thing where I feel like everyone's throwing in. I feel like with this show, you know what you're kind of getting yourself into. I feel like there's always a lot of trends though. Remember like a couple of years ago, Grace, like hot sauce was a big trend. Like everyone was freaking out about that. Yeah. You seem to be kind of drawn towards a lot of these projects that are very tension driven. Nine Perfect Strangers, Made It, we talked about last time and everything. Do you notice that as well a little bit, or does that kind of just happen and just be like, oh yeah, there's all my characters are involved in really serious tension driven conversations?
It's very, very true. And let me tell you, I'd love to do a comedy soon. I would love that. But I do think I'm drawn to just very layered characters, and that comes with usually, you know, trauma of some sort that they're going through or history. And I've had to play a lot of sad girls because of what I'm drawn to. It's because it's depth and it's experience, and I think at my age, like it's hard to come across a layered, deep role for a young woman. So I'm really drawn to really anything that has some sort of.
So I'm glad you see where I was coming from though, because those 3 projects, there's definitely that tension.
Heavy. Yeah, very heavy.
No, absolutely. Tummy Lies is streaming on Hulu. Grace, so great catching up with you again. Thank you so much for coming back on the show.
You too. Yeah, thank you so much. Have a good one.
No problem. This has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative. For previous episodes, look out for Grace Patten as Lucy and Tell Me Lies on Hulu. Till next time.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.